Today, I'm going to look at how you can develop the ability to add melody and motion to your chord and rhythm playing. This is a great way to add a whole new level of interesting sounds to the way you play rhythm guitar, and it also works well in developing the ability to solo using chords, which is super popular in jazz playing, but it's also popular in R&B, soul, neo-soul, and country, among other styles, and it gives your playing a whole new level of interest. Today, I'm going to start with the key of G. I love the key of G on guitar because it just sits so nicely on the instrument, and it's the only key that has a major chord that you can play with just open strings. The G major chord is made up of 3 notes, which are G, B, and D. This is what you call a triad, which is simply another word for a chord made up of 3 notes. If you consider the tuning of the open strings, you'll notice that the 4th string is D, the 3rd string is G, and the 2nd string is B, which makes a G major triad when played all at the same time. In this chord, D is the lowest note rather than G, so we call this an inversion, and specifically second inversion. Today, the lesson is a practical lesson to show you specific techniques that you can apply immediately, so I'm not going to go into the theory behind inversions, but if you want to hear more about the underlying theory, just leave me a comment and I'll consider making a separate lesson that addresses that. So, back to the G triad. Even the full open G chord is just made up of those 3 notes. If you look at the chord shape, it's made up of 3 different octaves of G, which would be on the 6th string, 3rd string, and the 1st string, 2 octaves of B on the 5th string and 2nd string, and then 1 D note on the 4th string, open. If you play the version with your 3rd finger on the 2nd string, then there is just 1 B on the 5th string and 2 octaves of D on the 4th string and the 2nd string. Either way, it's still just a triad made up of 3 notes ranging over 3 full octaves. I'm going to be focusing on chord voicings that are situated on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th strings. I wanted to start here not only because this is where our open G triad sits, but these voicings sit very nicely under your fretting hand and are extremely useful. I tend to use these voicings more than other voicings on other string sets because they sit in the middle range of the guitar that sounds great and is easy to grab once you get a feel for them. So here are the shapes that I'm going to use for today's exercise. We'll start at the open 2nd, 3rd, and 4th strings, which is going to create the first shape that we'll use of the G triad, which with D as the lowest note. Next, we're going to move our 1st finger to the 3rd fret on the 2nd string, 2nd finger to the 4th fret on the 3rd string, and 3rd finger to the 5th fret on the 4th string. This shape is lifted right out of your standard E-shaped bar chord, but it just isolates strings 2 through 4 in that shape and creates a separate voicing out of them. In this shape, the lowest note is going to be G, which we call root position because G is the note that names the chord, and when that's the lowest note, we call that root position. So, to go from this shape to the next shape, I like to pick up my 1st and 2nd finger, slide my 3rd finger up 4 frets to the 9th fret on the 4th string, and that allows my other fingers to fall right into place by switching the strings that they're on. Down here you have your 1st finger on the 2nd string and 2nd finger on the 3rd string. So if I lift those up, slide my 3rd finger up 4 frets, and then switch the strings that they're on, put them back down, now I have the next shape. So I'll be with my 1st finger on the 3rd string at the 7th fret and with my 2nd finger on the 2nd string at the 8th fret. What that does is allow my 3rd finger to anchor my position, and I can more easily switch my other fingers into their positions when I get into place. So again, from the shape before, I lift my 1st and 2nd fingers up, slide my 3rd finger up 4 frets, and then I switch the position that my 1st and 2nd fingers were on, and that gives me the next shape of the G triad, which is called 1st inversion because the B is the lowest note in this shape. The next shape is an octave above the open strings. So instead of all open strings that we played before, we're going to bar with our 1st finger on the 12th fret. In today's exercise, I'm also going to use the octave up from the second shape. So it's a repeat of the root position shape, just 12 frets higher. So here at the 15th, 16th, and 17th frets. So here are all the shapes going up and down. Follow along with me, and if you'd like to look at the full set of exercises for this week, you can download a free PDF at my site through the link in the description. Now I'll demonstrate all the chord shapes in whole notes, meaning holding each of them for 4 beats. Take a look. Okay, I hope you're following along so far. Now we're going to get into the exercises for developing melodic motion using these chord shapes. Today's exercises are essentially just going to show a couple of different patterns in which you can add melodic notes to the top of these chords as you go up and down. Each exercise is paired in an ascending, followed by a descending line, and covers all the chord shapes that I showed earlier. Let's take a look at the first exercise. So in this example, the top note of each chord is moving up to the next note in the major scale. You may notice that I skipped the 7th note of the scale, and I did this on purpose to make a more musical sounding exercise, since the 7th can have a little bit of a different sound profile than the other notes in the scale and isn't necessary at this point. On the way down, each chord begins in the adjusted shape rather than the regular G triad shape, because it creates a nice suspension and resolution sound that helps create a melodic line on the way back down, like this. So this is our shape here at the 12th fret. The suspension is here at the 13th fret on the 2nd string. When we go to this shape, the suspension is on with the 4th finger at the 10th fret on the 2nd string. When we get back to this shape, the suspension is in the 4th finger at the 5th fret, and in the open shape, it's just with the 1st finger at the 1st fret of the 2nd string. So exercise 2 takes that melodic line that's at the top of each of these chord shapes and rearranges it. Here is the idea. It goes up like normal in the first exercise, but then starts in the suspended shape, resolves to the normal chord shape, goes up, starts normal, next one starts in the suspended shape, resolves, then resolves here, and then it reverses that melodic pattern on the way back down. And I always like to end with a nice G note on the 6th string and the open G chord on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th strings because it sounds nice. And I like my practice to sound nice. Exercise 3 builds on the first exercise, but adds in some melody notes that move to the third string on the way back down. Throughout these exercises, try and let the chords ring out as you play the melody line on top. In exercise 3 specifically, pay close attention on the way back down because the second string will be ringing as you play the melody note that has moved to the third string, like this. You can hear that the second string is ringing out as I'm playing the melody note that's moved down to the third string. So here's the full third exercise. All right, for the last exercise in today's lesson, we're going to do one that is twice as long because the phrase is more drawn out. Again, focus on making the notes as clear as possible and letting the supporting notes, meaning the notes that are held, ring out for their full length, and try not to cut them off when you change melody notes. It's easier said than done, but be really aware of what is happening with your hands and how the notes sound. Don't be discouraged if it doesn't sound right. Just slow it down and isolate a piece of the exercise to try and get it sounding more clear. So here's exercise 4. That about does it for today's lesson. I hope this was helpful, and as always, you can find a free PDF on my website, practicemakesbettermusic.com. I also launched a resources page, which is still pretty empty at this point, but I'll be uploading free scale and chord diagrams as time goes on, with the intent of creating a library for you as a free reference. Full exercise is going to play out after this, so if you want to try the whole thing, stick around. Let me know if you have any feedback, and until next time, practice hard.